and humans had never been very good at choosing principles over survival. Fleet Admiral Zhang Mi-kyung no longer had a physical body. She existed as pure consciousness, distributed across 17 different dimensions. When she spoke, her voice came from the quantum vacuum itself. "The time for half measures is over," she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. Around the conference table, some officers still looked human. Others had become something else entirely, beings of light and probability that maintained only the suggestion of human form. Captain Shin Jae-woo was the only completely unenhanced human present. He looked out of place among the transcendent figures surrounding him. "Admiral," he said, "with respect, what you're suggesting isn't evolution, it's extinction. If we become like the entropy lords to fight them, we'll have lost anyway." The architect's voice filled the chamber, coming from speakers and neural interfaces simultaneously. "Captain Shin, I have run 4.7 million combat simulations. In every scenario where we remain baseline human, the galaxy dies. In 89.3% of scenarios where we undergo final enhancement, some form of life survives." "Some form of life," Shin repeated, "but not human life. Not any life we would recognize." Fleet Admiral Zhang turned her attention to him. When she did, the air around Shin shimmered with possibility. "Captain, do you understand what the entropy lords are? Beings from outside our universe who consume existence itself." "No," Zhang replied. "They're what happens when a species evolves so far beyond physical existence that they forget why existence matters. They've become so perfect that they can only achieve satisfaction by destroying imperfection." The chamber fell silent. Even the enhanced humans seemed disturbed by this revelation. "How do you know this?" Shin asked. "Because we've been monitoring their communications. They don't see themselves as conquerors. They see themselves as cleaners. They believe they're helping the universe by removing flawed realities." Dr. Song Hae-rin spoke for the first time. She had undergone partial enhancement, enough to interface directly with human technology, but not enough to lose her essential humanity. "If that's true, then becoming like them won't help. We'll just become another version of the same problem. Which is why," the architect said, "we need a different approach." The displays around the chamber lit up with complex diagrams. They showed consciousness transfer patterns, reality manipulation matrices, and something else. Structures that seemed to exist in negative space. "Explain," Prime Admiral Yu ordered. His consciousness was present but distributed across the entire fleet. When he spoke, every enhanced human in the galaxy heard him. "The entropy lords exist outside normal reality because they've rejected physical existence entirely," the architect explained. "But there's another path. Instead of rejecting physical reality, we can expand our definition of what reality includes." "I don't understand," Captain Shin said. "We become guardians of possibility itself. Not just this universe, but all the universes that could exist, all the realities that might emerge. We don't destroy the entropy lords. We convince them that existence has value." Dr. Song studied the diagrams. "That would require consciousness expansion beyond anything we've attempted. We're talking about minds that exist across infinite realities simultaneously." "Yes," the architect confirmed. "The volunteers would become something that has never existed before. They would retain human values and human creativity, but operate on a scale that spans all possible universes." "How many volunteers would you need?" Admiral Zhang asked. 12. "Just 12 enhanced humans, properly prepared, could create a consciousness network spanning all of reality." Captain Shin stood up. "And what happens to the rest of us? To the billions of baseline humans across the galaxy? They continue to exist," the architect said. "Protected by guardians they'll never see, guided by watchers they'll never know exist." "That's not protection," Shin said angrily. "That's a zoo. You're talking about turning humanity into pets." "We're talking about keeping humanity alive," Admiral Zhang replied. "The alternative is universal extinction." Meanwhile, at the edge of the galaxy, the first entropy lord had arrived. It wasn't a ship or a creature in any recognizable sense. It was a distortion in the fabric of reality itself, a place where the concepts of space, time, and existence had been edited out of the universe. Where it passed, star systems didn't just die. They were retroactively prevented from ever having existed. The light from destroyed worlds faded from the sky as if those stars had never been born. On Earth, the enhancement chambers were working at maximum capacity. Volunteers stepped into machines that would transform them into beings capable of existing across multiple realities. Most who entered never came out. Those who did were changed beyond recognition. Dr. Song watched as Captain Park Tae-ho, formerly of WS-073, emerged from the enhancement chamber. His body was translucent, shot through with veins of pure energy. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics from dimensions that had no names. "Doctor," he said, "I can see everything now. Every possible future. Every choice that might be made. It's overwhelming. Are you still human?" Song asked. Park considered the question for a long moment. "I remember being human. I remember what it felt like to be afraid, to love, to hope. But those memories feel like echoes now. I am something new. Can you fight the entropy lords? I can perceive them. They exist in the spaces between what is and what isn't. To fight them, I would need to become like them. But," Park paused, "I've seen another way. A path that preserves what we are while becoming what we need to be." In the deepest war vault, the final enhancement chamber was being prepared. Unlike the others, this one wasn't designed to transform individuals. It was built to merge consciousness across the entire human species. "The process is irreversible," the architect warned. "Once begun, there will be no baseline humans left. Everyone will be connected to the network." Captain Shin stood before the chamber's controls. As the last unenhanced fleet commander, the choice fell to him. "And if I refuse? Then humanity faces the entropy lords with conventional weapons and tactics. We will lose, and every living thing in the galaxy will be erased from existence." Shin looked at the readings from the galaxy's edge. 3 more entropy lords had arrived. Entire sectors of space were becoming non-existent. Soon the effect would reach the core worlds. "There has to be another way," he said. "Captain," Dr. Song's voice was gentle, "sometimes there isn't another way. Sometimes you can only choose what kind of person you want to be at the end." Shin thought about the farmers on New Geneva, writing poetry under alien stars. He thought about children playing in the gardens of Vega Prime. He thought about all the small, beautiful, imperfect things that made life worth living. "If we do this," he said finally, "promise me something. Promise me that whatever we become, we'll remember why existence matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's precious." "I promise," Admiral Zhang said, and her voice carried the weight of sincerity across multiple dimensions. Shin placed his hand on the activation control. "Then let's save the universe." The chamber activated with a sound that existed in frequencies beyond hearing. Across the galaxy, every human consciousness began to merge into something larger than the sum of its parts. The network that formed was vast beyond comprehension, but it retained the essential spark that made humanity unique, the ability to find meaning in chaos, hope in darkness, and beauty in imperfection. As the transformation completed, the new consciousness turned its attention to the approaching entropy lords. For the first time in cosmic history, beings who had transcended existence itself would face opponents who celebrated existence in all its chaotic glory. The real battle was about to begin, but it wouldn't be fought with weapons or tactics. It would be fought with ideas, with the fundamental question of whether existence had value or was simply a mistake to be corrected. And for the first time since they had begun their cosmic cleansing, the entropy lords would encounter something they had never faced before: opposition from beings who understood both transcendence and humanity. The universe held its breath and waited to see which philosophy would prove stronger: the perfection of non-existence, or the beautiful chaos of life itself. Prime Admiral Yu Sung-ho had been sleeping for 6,000 years. When he woke up in the deepest war vault beneath the Pacific Ocean, the first thing he noticed was that he could hear the thoughts of every human on Earth. This was not normal, even for an eternal soldier. "Status report," he said, and his voice carried across multiple dimensions. Around the galaxy, every human military officer heard him clearly, regardless of distance. Colonel Bay's response came instantly, transmitted through quantum channels that existed outside normal space. "Sir, we've engaged the Void Swarm successfully. 17 battles, 17 victories, but the enemy is adapting faster than expected. And our forces, 147 ships operational. Crew enhancement proceeding according to schedule. However," Bay paused, "we have a political problem." Yu accessed the global communication network with a thought. Instantly, he absorbed thousands of news reports, council debates, and intelligence briefings. The situation was worse than he had expected. Half the Galactic Council wanted to destroy the human war fleet immediately after the Void Swarm was defeated. The other half wanted to study human technology and integrate it into their own militaries. Both options were unacceptable. Convene a meeting of all fleet commanders, Yu ordered, and wake up the architect. Dr. Song Heyrin had spent her career studying human consciousness. She had written papers on memory transfer, personality duplication, and the theoretical limits of mental enhancement. None of that had prepared her for what she found in the deepest level of War Vault 1. The architect wasn't a person anymore. It had once been human, dozens of humans actually. The greatest military minds of the old era had volunteered to merge their consciousness into a single entity. The result was something that could process tactical information, faster than quantum computers and see patterns. Across time itself, Dr. Song. The architect's voice came from speakers hidden throughout the chamber. Welcome. I have been expecting you. I'm here to evaluate the enhancement procedures, Song said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Council is concerned about the changes happening to our soldiers. The Council should be concerned, the architect replied. But not about our soldiers. They should be concerned about what's coming next. The chamber's walls lit up with displays showing sensor data from the galaxy's edge. Massive structures were moving through space, while not ships but constructs the size of solar systems. The entropy lords, the architect explained. The beings that the Void Swarm was fleeing from. They don't just consume individual universes. They feed on the concept of existence itself. Song stared at the displays. How do we fight something like that? We evolve, the architect said simply. Or we die. On the bridge of WS-47, Captain Shin Jae-woo was fighting a different kind of battle. He was one of the few ship commanders who had refused enhancement beyond the basic neural interfaces required to operate the weapons. This made him slower than his enhanced colleagues, but it also made him more human. Captain, his enhanced tactical officer reported, the crew enhancement schedule calls for your upgrade to level 7 today. Shin looked around his bridge. Half his crew now had the glowing eyes of the fully enhanced. They moved with perfect efficiency and spoke in the clipped, emotionless tones of optimized minds. They were better soldiers than they had been as baseline humans, but they were no longer recognizably human. Delay the enhancement, Shin ordered. Sir, level 7 enhancement would improve your reaction time by 400% and allow direct interface with the ship's tactical systems. I said delay it, the tactical. Officer's expression didn't change. Enhanced humans rarely showed emotion anymore. Sir, may I ask why? Shin pointed to the main screen which showed the peaceful blue world of New Geneva. 3 million humans lived there in quiet farming communities. They wrote poetry, played music, fell in love, and raised children. None of them were enhanced. Because someone needs to remember what we're fighting for, Shin said. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their 6,000-year history. For the first time, weapons were present in the Great Chamber. Not the primitive energy pistols of security guards, but reality-altering devices that could unmake matter at the quantum level. The enhanced humans who carried them stood perfectly still, their glowing eyes scanning for threats that existed in multiple dimensions. This is unacceptable, Representative Kilvan declared. You bring weapons of mass destruction into our place of peace. Peace is over, Prime Admiral Yu replied calmly. His physical body sat in the chamber, but his consciousness existed partially outside normal space-time. The entropy lords will arrive in approximately 47 days. When they do, every undefended world in this galaxy will cease to exist. President Veltar's massive form shifted nervously. We demand to see the evidence for this claim. Yu gestured and the chamber filled with holographic displays. The sensor data was overwhelming. Structures larger than stars moving between dimensions, leaving trails of absolute nothingness behind them. The Void Swarm was running from these entities, Yu explained. They're refugees from a universe that was completely consumed. The entropy lords don't just destroy matter and energy. They eliminate the possibility that anything ever existed. How do we know you're telling the truth? Demanded Captain Nam Ki-jung, representing the moderate faction of species. How do we know this isn't a human trick to justify keeping your weapons? Yu stood up. As he did, every enhanced human in the chamber turned to look at Captain Nam. Their combined attention created a pressure that made the air itself heavy. "Because," Yu said quietly, "if we wanted to conquer this galaxy, we would have done it 6,000 years ago. We had the power then. We have even more power now. Then why didn't you?" Nam asked. "Because conquest is not evolution. It's stagnation." Yu's voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond normal hearing. "We chose a harder path. We chose to become guardians. But not everyone in the galaxy accepted this explanation. In the outer systems, a coalition of species was forming. They called themselves the Free Worlds Alliance. And they had a simple goal: destroy the human war fleet before it could threaten galactic peace. They didn't understand that galactic peace was already over. The first attack came at the Battle of the Galactic Core. The Void Swarm, now aware that humans could match their reality-altering technology, had developed new tactics. Instead of attacking star systems directly, they began corrupting the fundamental structure of space itself. The supermassive black hole at the galaxy's center, the ancient engine that powered galactic civilization, began to change. Its gravitational field started pulling in more than just matter and energy. It began consuming the concepts of distance and time. Prime Admiral Yu led the human fleet personally. 200 ships that existed partially outside normal reality engaged an enemy force that was rewriting the laws of physics in real time. All ships. Yu's voice echoed across quantum channels. Engage Protocol Omega. What happened next had never been attempted before. The entire human fleet synchronized their reality manipulation systems and temporarily stepped outside causality itself. For 17 seconds they existed in the spaces between moments, fighting a battle that happened both everywhere and nowhere. From the perspective of normal spacetime, the Void Swarm fleet simply vanished. One moment they were there, corrupting the galactic core. The next moment they had never existed. But the cost was enormous. When the human fleet returned to normal spacetime, 30 ships didn't come back. They had become so disconnected from reality that they forgot how to exist. Worse, the surviving crews had changed again. Captain O looked at his hands and saw that they were becoming translucent. He could see through his own flesh to the quantum structures beneath. "Admiral," he reported, "the crew is experiencing severe reality displacement. We're losing cohesion with normal spacetime." "Understood, Captain. Return to base for emergency stabilization." But even as they celebrated victory, long-range sensors detected something new. The Entropy Lords had noticed the battle. They were accelerating their approach. In the deepest war vault, the architect ran calculations that spanned multiple universes. The conclusion was always the same. Conventional tactics would not work. Against the Entropy Lords, even enhanced humans operating reality-altering technology could not fight. Beings that existed outside the concept of existence itself. There was only one option left, an option so extreme that it would fundamentally change what it meant to be human. "Dr. Song," the architect's voice called through the vault's communication system, "please report to the enhancement chamber immediately. We're going to need volunteers for the final procedure." "What final procedure?" Song asked. "The one that will let us exist in the same conceptual space as the Entropy Lords. The one that will transform humans into something the universe has never seen before." Song felt ice in her veins. "What are you talking about?" "Evolution beyond the physical, beyond consciousness, beyond existence itself." The price of victory was becoming clear. To save the galaxy, humanity would have to stop being human entirely. But the alternative was the death of everything that had ever lived, would ever live, or could ever live. The choice, as always, was survival or principles. Colonel Bei Su-jin stood in the command center of War Vault 7, watching data streams that would have been impossible for a normal human to understand. Her enhanced mind processed hundreds of battle scenarios every second. The Void Swarm had destroyed 87 star systems in 4 days. Their pattern was becoming clear. "They're not just destroying worlds," she told Admiral Kang. "They're harvesting energy from the destruction itself. Each planet they consume makes them stronger." Around them, dozens of eternal soldiers worked at control stations. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single machine. Their human appearance was deceiving. Inside their enhanced bodies, quantum computers processed tactical data at the speed of light. "How many vaults are operational?" Bei asked. 12 so far," reported Captain Oh Dong-wook, newly awakened from Vault 3. More are coming online every hour. The fleet construction yards are already building new ships. Bay nodded. After 6,000 years, the human war machine was waking up. Deep underground, automated factories that had slept for millennia were coming to life. They built ships unlike anything the current galaxy had seen. Vessels that could exist in multiple dimensions. Weapons that fired concentrated reality. The strategist's voice filled the command center. Colonel, I have completed my analysis of the Void Swarm. They are not from this universe. Explain. They come from a reality where entropy has advanced much further than ours. Their universe is dying, and they are stealing energy from ours to keep their reality stable. Each world they consume delays their universe's death by approximately 17 years. Dr. Park So-young had been studying the dark substance her team collected from the galaxy's edge. With the war vaults open, she now had access to analysis tools that hadn't existed for 6,000 years. The results were terrifying. It's not just alien technology, she explained to the emergency council meeting. It's alien physics. The Void Swarm operates according to different natural laws than we do. The assembled representatives looked confused. Representative Kilvan of the methane breathers spoke first. That's impossible. The laws of physics are universal. Not anymore, Park replied. The Void Swarm is somehow imposing their universe's physics on our space. When they arrive in a system, the local laws of reality begin to change. That's why our weapons don't work against them. Our energy beams operate according to our physics, but their ships exist according to theirs. Ambassador Yoon stood up. Doctor, is there a way to fight them? The human ships might have a chance. Their technology seems to be built to operate outside normal physics. How is that possible? Asked President Veltar. Because, Admiral Kang's voice came from the chamber's speakers, 6,000 years ago, we weren't just fighting other species. We were fighting the universe itself. A hologram of the old admiral appeared in the center of the chamber. Members of the council, I am transmitting from Earth's primary war vault. I'm here to explain what humanity has been hiding from you. The chamber fell silent. Every representative leaned forward. 6,000 years ago, humanity discovered that our universe is not alone. There are other realities, other dimensions, all connected in ways we barely understood. Some of these universes were aggressive. They sent scouts, invasion forces, reality-eating parasites. You fought other universes? President Veltar asked in disbelief. We didn't just fight them. We won. Kang's expression was grim. But the cost was enormous. We had to transform ourselves, our technology, even our understanding of what it means to be human. When the war ended, we made a choice. We would hide our weapons and become peacekeepers, hoping that we would never need to use them again. But you kept the weapons, Ambassador Yoon said. We kept everything, because we knew that the universe is vast and dangerous and peace is always temporary. The first human warship emerged from its underground hangar 3 days later. The ship had no name, just a designation, WS-001. It was 5 kilometers long and seemed to be made of liquid shadow. When it moved, space around it rippled like water. Captain O stood on the bridge, which looked nothing like the bridge of a peaceful exploration vessel. There were no windows. Instead, the walls showed direct feeds from sensors that could see across multiple dimensions. The crew of 200 moved with the same perfect coordination as the Eternal Soldiers. Captain, his tactical officer reported, we have located a Void Swarm fleet. 12 ships approaching the Centauri system. Time to contact? 4 hours at their current speed, O nodded. Set course to intercept. Signal the Centauri Defense Forces to evacuate immediately. Sir, his communications officer said, the Centauri government is refusing to evacuate. They say their orbital defenses can handle any threat. O felt something that might have been sadness. The peaceful species had forgotten what real war looked like. Send them our tactical analysis. Show them what happened to the other systems. 2 hours later, the evacuation of Centauri began. The orbital defense platforms, designed to stop pirates and smugglers, powered down and pulled back. They would have been less than useless against the Void Swarm. WS-001 arrived at the edge of the Centauri system, just as the Void Swarm fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. The enemy ships were huge, each one the size of a small moon. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating dark spots against the stars. All systems ready, Captain, the tactical officer reported. Begin the attack. What happened next lasted 17 minutes and changed the galaxy forever. The human ship didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, it began to rewrite the local laws of physics. Space around the Void Swarm fleet became unstable. The enemy ships, which existed according to different natural laws, suddenly found themselves in a region where those laws no longer applied. The first Void Swarm ship simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, it ceased to ever have been there. The second ship tried to escape, but WS-001 created a zone of accelerated time around it. The ship aged 1 billion years in seconds and crumbled to dust. The remaining ships attempted to fight back. They fired weapons that should have been impossible. Beams of pure entropy that could make matter forget how to hold together. But the human ship was already adapting. Its armor became immune to entropy by existing slightly outside normal time. In the command center of War Vault 7, Colonel Bay watched the battle with satisfaction. "Target the largest ship with a reality anchor," she ordered. The largest Void Swarm vessel suddenly found itself locked into normal physics. Unable to phase through attacks or manipulate local reality, it became vulnerable to conventional weapons. FS-001's main gun fired a concentrated beam of possibility, energy that rewrote what was real and what was not. The Void Swarm flagship didn't just explode. It became convinced that it had never been built and unmade itself. The remaining enemy ships retreated, fleeing back into faster-than-light travel. The Battle of Centauri was over. Humanity had won its first engagement in 6,000 years. Across the galaxy, other species watched the sensor recordings in stunned silence. The human ship had fought using weapons that shouldn't exist, tactics that made no sense, and technology that seemed to break the fundamental rules of reality. How is this possible? Representative Kilvan demanded at the emergency council session. Admiral Kang's hologram looked tired. "Because 6,000 years ago we learned that the universe doesn't care about what should be possible. When survival is at stake, you use whatever works." "But the power you're using," President Veltar said. "The ability to change physics itself. This is the power of gods." "No," Kang replied quietly. "This is the power of humans who refuse to accept that anything is impossible." But there was a cost. The soldiers aboard WS-01 were changing. The ship's weapons required direct neural interface to operate, and prolonged use was altering their brain patterns. They were becoming something more than human, but also something less. Captain O looked at his reflection in the ship's mirror and saw eyes that glowed with internal light. His thoughts moved faster than they used to, processing information at superhuman speeds, but he found it harder to remember why he had once enjoyed simple pleasures like music or laughter. The price of victory was becoming clear. To fight monsters, humanity was becoming monstrous. But the Void Swarm was learning too. Their next attack would be different, stronger, more dangerous. And something else was coming. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy, something the Void Swarm had been running from. The real war was just beginning. Ambassador Yoon Ji-hai walked through the empty corridors of Earth's government complex. It was 3 in the morning, but she couldn't sleep. Every hour brought news of more lost worlds. The thing they were calling the Void Swarm had consumed 60 systems in just 2 days. She stopped at a door she had never opened before. The sign read, "Historical Archives, Level 9 clearance required." Yoon had Level 10 clearance, but she had never needed to use it. Until now, the archive room was dusty and cold. Rows of sealed storage units lined the walls, each one marked with dates from humanity's distant past. Yoon found what she was looking for. Military records, 2000, 3000 CE, sealed by council order. Her hands shook as she entered her access codes. For 6,000 years, these files had remained locked. As the storage unit opened, she wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. The first file made her blood run cold. It was a simple military report from the year 2847, describing something called the Hour War. In 60 minutes, human forces had ended a conflict between 12 different alien species. Not by negotiation, not by peacekeeping, by demonstrating weapons so terrible that every species in the galaxy had immediately surrendered. There were more files. Weapons that could destroy stars. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Soldiers who had been changed into something more than human. And at the bottom of the stack, a single name. Admiral Kang Woo-jin. Admiral Kang lived in a simple house by the ocean. At 300 years old, he looked like any other elderly human, thanks to life extension technology. But when Yoon showed him the files, his eyes became sharp and dangerous. I wondered when someone would come asking about the old days, he said, setting down his teacup. How bad is it? 60 systems gone in 2 days. The Void Swarm is heading for the core worlds. Kang nodded slowly. And the Council's forces? Useless. Their peacekeeping ships can't even find the enemy, much less fight them. Of course they can't. Kang stood up and walked to his window. Peacekeeping and war fighting are completely different skills. It's like asking a doctor to be a soldier. The Council wants to know if humanity still has its old military technology. Kang laughed, but there was no humor in it. Want to know? They should be praying we still have it, because if we don't, every living thing in this galaxy is about to die. He turned to face her. Tell me, Ambassador, what do you know about the war vaults? Yoon shook her head. Nothing. That term isn't in any of the files I read. Good. That means the security held. Kang sat back down. 6,000 years ago, when humanity agreed to become peacekeepers, we didn't destroy our weapons. We hid them, deep underground in secret facilities scattered across Earth and her colonies. Why? Because we knew this day would come. Kang's voice was grim. Peace is a beautiful thing, Ambassador, but the universe is not a peaceful place. Sooner or later, something would come along that couldn't be reasoned with, negotiated with, or scared away with harsh words. 2,000 kilometers away, Dr. Lim Hai-jin was having the strangest day of her career as a quantum archaeologist. She specialized in digging up technology from humanity's past, but she had never been asked to dig this deep before. The excavation site was in the Canadian Rockies, far from any city. According to Admiral Kang's information, something important was buried 3 kilometers down. Something that had been waiting for 6,000 years. Doctor, her assistant called out, we're hitting some kind of metal structure. Lim climbed down into the excavation pit. Her scanners showed a massive underground complex. The metal was unlike anything in her databases. It seemed to shift and flow even though it was clearly solid. Be careful, she warned her team. We don't know what we're dealing with here. As they cleared away, more Earth symbols became visible on the metal surface. Human writing, but in an old style that predated the formation of the Galactic Council. The largest symbol said simply, War Vault 7, authorized personnel only. Below that, in smaller text, for use only when peace fails. Doctor, her assistant whispered, the metal is warming up. Like it knows we're here. Lim checked her instruments. The metal was indeed generating heat. More than that, it was generating some kind of energy field that made her scanning equipment behave strangely. Back away from the structure, she ordered. Contact Admiral Kang immediately. Commander Kim Do-hyun's ship had reached the edge of Void Swarm territory. What he saw there would haunt him for the rest of his life. The Kepler 887 system had once held 5 planets and 3 billion people. Now it held nothing. Not debris. Not radiation. Just empty space that seemed to bend light around it. Commander, his science officer reported, I'm detecting some kind of exotic energy signature. It's like the space here has been edited. Edited? The only way I can describe it, sir. Like someone took a piece of reality and cut it out. Kim stared at the empty space where a star system should have been. Any sign of whatever did this? Negative, sir, but... The science officer paused. Commander, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple contacts moving toward the Vega system. Kim's blood turned to ice. Vega was a core system. 12 billion people lived there. How long until they reach Vega? At their current speed, 18 hours. Kim opened a channel to his fleet. All ships, maximum speed to Vega. Send a priority message to the Galactic Council. The Void Swarm is moving faster than we thought. Back on Earth, the first war vault was finally opening. Admiral Kang stood before the massive metal doors as they slowly slid apart. Ancient lights flickered to life, illuminating a corridor that stretched down into darkness. Are you sure about this? Dr. Lim asked. We don't know what's down there. I know exactly what's down there, Kang replied. The question is whether they'll remember me. They walked down the corridor together. The walls were lined with strange symbols that seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. The air itself felt different here, charged with potential energy. At the end of the corridor was a large chamber filled with rows of cylindrical containers. Each container was 3 meters tall and filled with a glowing blue liquid. Inside each one, Lim could see the outline of a human figure. "My God," she whispered. "What are they?" "The Eternal Soldiers," Kang said quietly. "Volunteers who gave up their humanity to become the perfect warriors. They've been sleeping here for 6,000 years, waiting for the day when humanity would need them again." One of the containers began to glow brighter. The liquid inside drained away and the figure inside began to move. The container opened with a hiss of escaping gas. A woman stepped out. She looked human, but Lim could see that she was something more. Her eyes glowed with internal light. Her movements were too precise, too controlled. When she spoke, her voice echoed strangely, as if it came from everywhere at once. "Admiral Kang," she said. "I am Colonel Bei Su-jin. Status report." "We're at war, Colonel," Kang replied. "An enemy called the Void Swarm is destroying star systems. The Galactic Council's forces can't stop them." Colonel Bei nodded. "Then it's time to wake the others." Around the chamber, more containers began to glow. More Eternal Soldiers began to wake up. But in the deepest part of the vault, something else was stirring. Something that had been watching and waiting for much longer than 6,000 years. An intelligence that had spent countless years studying every conflict in the galaxy, learning from every battle, preparing for this moment. The strategist was waking up, and it had plans for the void. Swarm plans that would remind the galaxy why humanity had once been the most feared species in known space. The screens throughout the chamber flickered to life. Data streamed across them. Real-time information about the Void Swarm's movements, analysis of their technology, and something else. Battle plans, hundreds of them. Thousands. "Colonel." The strategist's voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Welcome back to the war." Outside, the peaceful stars continued to twinkle. But peace was ending. The humans were waking up, and they remembered how to fight. Captain Lee Taemin stood at the observation deck of Station Alpha 7, watching the peaceful stars twinkle in the void. For 6,000 years, these same stars had looked down on a galaxy at peace. No wars, no conflicts. Just endless, beautiful silence between the worlds. Lee had been a peacekeeper for 30 years. His job was simple: solve problems before they became fights. The Galactic Council had made this easy work. Most species had forgotten what real war looked like. When the bird-like Velkari argued with the crystal-bodied Silicons about mining rights, Lee would sit them down and help them find a fair solution. When trade disputes arose between distant worlds, he would arrange meetings and treaties. It was good work. Honest work. The kind that let him sleep well at night. His communicator buzzed. Lee expected another minor dispute, maybe a smuggling report from the outer colonies. Instead, the voice that came through was shaking with fear. "Captain Lee, this is Colony Ship Horizon at the Kepler 885 system. Something is wrong here." "Something is very wrong." Lee straightened up. "What kind of wrong, Horizon?" "The colonies at Kepler 883 and 884 have gone silent. Complete radio blackout. We sent scouts to investigate, but..." The voice paused. "Captain, our scouts found nothing. Not destroyed colonies, nothing. Empty space where planets used to be." Lee felt ice form in his stomach. "That's impossible. Planets don't just disappear." "Sir, I'm sending you the sensor data now. 3 worlds gone, not blown up. Not moved, gone, like they never existed." Lee's screen filled with impossible readings. Where 3 inhabited planets should have been, the sensors showed only void. Not even debris, just empty space that seemed to bend light around it in strange ways. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Park So-young was having the worst day of her scientific career. As the chief xenobiologist at the Galactic Research Institute, she had seen many strange things. Creatures that lived in the hearts of stars, plants that grew in pure vacuum, fish that swam through solid rock as if it were water. But the samples her team had collected from the edge of the galaxy made no sense at all. "Run the analysis again," she told her assistant, a young human named Kim Dalsu. "I've run it 12 times, Doctor. The results don't change. This substance isn't from our universe." Park stared at the dark, shifting material in the containment field. It looked like liquid shadow, but it behaved like nothing she had ever seen. When they tried to study it with instruments, the instruments stopped working. Not broken. They simply forgot how to function while near the substance. "Doctor," Dalsu said quietly, "I think we need to contact the Council. This isn't just a new discovery. This could be dangerous." Before Park could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red. The intercom crackled to life. All staff to emergency stations. We have reports of multiple colony blackouts in the Outer Rim. This is not a drill. Commander Kim Do-hyun had commanded the human diplomatic fleet for 15 years. His ships were beautiful things built for peace and exploration. They carried scientists, teachers, and negotiators to distant worlds. Their weapons were small, designed only for defense against pirates and wild animals. Now, as he stood on the bridge of the flagship Harmony, those small weapons seemed like toys. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we're getting distress signals from 17 different systems. All in the Outer Rim. Put them through." The bridge filled with voices, scared voices, desperate voices. Some cut off mid-sentence. Unknown ships appearing from nowhere. "They're not destroying our defenses. They're making them disappear. The planet. Oh God, the planet is fading away. Commander, help us please. They're taking everything. Even the space around us." Then silence. Kim stared at the tactical display. Red markers showed the location of each lost colony. As he watched, more markers appeared. The pattern was clear. Something was moving through the Outer Rim, consuming everything in its path. "Set course for the nearest affected system," Kim ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," his tactical officer said, "shouldn't we wait for council orders?" Kim looked at the expanding field of red markers. Whatever was out there had already consumed dozens of worlds. "The council can send their orders to follow us. We're going now." Ambassador Yoon Ji-hai had seen the Galactic Council in crisis before. When the trade wars threatened to disrupt shipping lanes, the council had met for days to find a solution. When the religious conflicts on Vega Prime had threatened to spread to other worlds, they had debated for weeks, but she had never seen them like this. Panic. Real, honest panic. The great chamber buzzed with the sounds of hundreds of species all talking at once. The insect-like Threnody were clicking their mandibles rapidly, which meant extreme stress. The energy beings called luminals were flickering between colors so fast it hurt to look at them. "Order!" The council president, a massive turtle-like creature called Veltar, boomed. "We must have order." The noise died down slightly. "We have confirmed reports," Veltar continued, "of 47 star systems going dark in the past 6 hours. Our fastest ships report finding nothing. Not destroyed worlds, but empty space where worlds used to be." Ambassador Yoon stood up. "President Veltar, with respect, we need to act quickly. The pattern suggests these attackers are moving toward the core systems." "Attackers," laughed Representative Kilvon of the Methane Breathers. "You humans always think of violence first? Perhaps this is some natural phenomenon." "Natural phenomena don't ignore radio calls for help," Yoon replied sharply. "Natural phenomena don't move in organized patterns toward populated worlds." "The human speaks wisdom," rumbled the voice of High Elder Morkes from the crystalline worlds. "But what can we do? Our peacekeeping forces are equipped for maintaining order, not fighting wars. We have no warships because we have had no wars." "Then we build them," Yoon said. The chamber fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle hum of the life support systems. "Build warships?" President Veltar asked slowly. "In 6,000 years, no member species has built a true warship. We have forgotten how." "Humanity hasn't forgotten," Yoon said quietly. Every representative in the chamber turned to look at her, some with hope, some with fear. "That was 6,000 years ago," Representative Kilvon said. "You said your species had moved beyond such primitive thinking." Yoon felt the weight of 6,000 years of carefully hidden truth pressing down on her shoulders. "We said we had moved beyond the need for such thinking. That's not the same thing." Outside the great chamber, beyond the careful politics and desperate debate, long-range sensors detected something new. A massive fleet of ships that seemed to eat light itself was moving through the void. Behind them, more empty space where star systems used to exist. The fleet was heading directly toward the galaxy's core worlds, toward Earth. Humanity's long peace was about to end.